So objective 3 is what challenges youth or adolescents face when it comes to SRH matters, i.e., where is the gap in information delivery from caregivers? So the first question here will be to Harriet. In your experience, what majorly informs the knowledge, attitude, and practices of the youth in matters pertaining to contraceptives, and where is the gap?
Well, in Swahili, we have a saying, asiyefunzwa na mamaye hufunza na ulimwengu. That means if you're not taught by your mother, the world will teach you. I've just done a direct translation of that saying. And unfortunately, most of the young people learn about things from their peers after high school, or sadly some of them have to learn the hard way because they get pregnant when they're still in high school, but most of them learn about these things after high school. Yeah, although I told you guys that I was very privileged that my mom used to talk to me about these things, there are things that my mom did not know, even about a woman that I came to know when I was in med school, after towards the end of my first year. Things like, personally, I thought, it's a fun fact, I thought that women pee through their vagina. Yeah. And after I did anatomy in med school is when I realized, oh, you don't pee through your vagina. You have a pee hole, then your vagina. Like, they're two different entities, yeah? And that even has a lot of implication even on how people view sexually transmitted infections. For example, most of us think that urinary tract infections are sexually transmitted, but they are not. So those are some of the things that I had to learn from the world. The world being university, yeah. I didn't learn from my primary school or high school or from my parents. And that's what most young people have to go through. And most of the challenges we face are culture, yeah. Most of the tribes in Kenya, actually, it's a taboo to talk about sexual things with your parents, yeah. And when you try to bring it up, it's like, it means you're a spoiled child, or you're actually thinking about being sexually active at a young age. And the second one is religion. Sometimes even in church, some churches, or some even in the mosques, or whatever religion you belong to, sometimes we'd all agree that it's hard for you to interact with the opposite sex, because everyone thinks if a girl interacts with a boy or a boy interacts with a girl, it's definitely going to lead to something sexual or a bad ending, which is not necessarily the case. So also that has a negative implication on young people learning about their sexual and reproductive health rights. Third is social stereotypes, culture and religion aside. And I'd like to bring something up. Let's all think about this, especially the men and also the ladies. You're free to, but I want to pose this question to the men. Let me pick one man for argument's sake, Enoch, from the for the sake of this scenario. Enoch is my new boyfriend, and we want to have sex, or we have decided that we want to be sexually active in our relationship. But on our first sexual encounter, when we're just about to have sex, I pull out a pack of condoms from my purse. What do you think Enoch will think of me? Most definitely he'll think, this is a loose girl, she does this with a lot of people. But that's not the case, yeah? It just means that I'm very sexually conscious of myself, and I have taken the responsibility to protect myself as my own, not as the man's responsibility. So that sexual stereotype usually affects most young people's sexual encounters, And you'll even get girls having unprotected sex just because the guy said, oh, I didn't carry condoms, or I'm allergic to condoms, or something like that, yeah? And women are very scared of taking that, like taking the mantle and being responsible for the outcomes of their sexual encounters. So I think that also is a barrier to SRH. And I feel like parents in this forum need to take up the responsibility to talk to their children, yeah, about sexual health and sexual and reproductive health. But then also, as young people, we also, if we feel like our parents are not willing to come up and talk about these things, we should also be vocal enough to bring it out in a kind way and maybe start the conversation. Our parents don't have to start the conversation. We as young people can start the conversation. So yeah, I think that's it for me for this question.
Thank you, Harriet. So the next question will be to Marie. When it comes to menstrual health issues, what is causing the divide in talking about these matters as caregivers?
Wow, thank you for the question, Harriet. What a beautiful contribution. And I'm just sitting here and wondering how advanced you seem to be, not only as a person, but maybe in your country. I don't know. I've been on the field, but the response is not as fabulous as in your country. I look at the participants and there are like 20 others plus us. And if I organize something here like this, I'm not even going to have, I don't know, why are people shy to talk about it? And I'm going to honestly say that uh, I want to think of religion. I want to think of culture. I want to think of our own ego as caregivers, I will start with our own ego as caregivers. Well, some of us or some people might think, who taught me about it? Let them figure it out. But there's so much danger in letting children today figure things out on their own. And look at me. I listened to Harriet, and Harriet says how her mother was teaching her. I'm serious. My mother didn't talk nothing about this to me. No conversation at all until I went to secondary school. I don't know if it's because uh, it's not even that we grew up in a religious society, but I'm just wondering if she thought that it was not right to be talking to me about uh, my sexual health, reproductive health, or they think that as soon as they start talking to you about it, you're just going to go and try to explore, and before they know it, either you are pregnant or you are getting somebody's child pregnant. When we were young, people would say, if you just stand with a boy, if you just let the boy touch you, like maybe there's usually this thing between generations. So I, for example, I've had to fight with my mom or have some loggerheads in trying to say, well, if you did it this way, I'm not obliged to do it this way. Even with regards to parenting style, we don't parent the same. And now she's parenting my son, like when my son goes to her, I see their relationship. I was there last week. I visited on Friday. My son was there for the weekend because he goes there to spend the weekend with her once in a while. And my first son, and I saw the relationship, and it was more relaxed. And he even had the key to the house and all of that. And I was like, wow. Okay, well, let him get the parenting from her. I did not get. So I think the gap comes with their own perspective or the culture. And some of us, some parents, my generation, might have inherited it, and we don't talk about these kind of things. We are in a Christian family. No, you don't talk about sex, because if you talk about it, they will start running around with it. And unfortunately, even in churches, it's not long ago, I even came up with a program to talk about rape, and I applied in several of them and just one, and they were trying to make me focus on what the girl can do not to be raped, and I was like, and talk only about the dressing, and I was like, no, we have to have an open conversation, and we have to really start shifting our mindset from the way maybe our parents talked about it or they didn't talk about it to us, and we have to stop clinging to no, we don't want, no, this kind of thing cannot be talked about in church. If it's not talked about in church, it's not talked about at home. If it's not talked about in school, the kids will still find out and they will talk about it themselves. So I don't know if you ask me what we can do as caregivers. you know, we can really start to listen to these children, because we've already talked in the first session how we can start to have the conversations with them. When you start to have the conversation with them, they are also going to start taking that conversation further. And yeah, you cannot stop them from being curious. You cannot stop them from wanting to trans. You cannot stop a child from being sexually active. An adolescent, for example, like Harriet is saying, you can only encourage them. How do you know if they're responsible, if they're carrying a packet of condom in their bag? You ask them, you provide it, and then you also follow up and you ask them, and then you don't make it a taboo for them to say, I'm in love with this girl, or this is my girlfriend, or this is my boyfriend. Because as soon as you make them feel ashamed that they are having this kind of relationships or feelings, or even the hormonal imbalances, I'm feeling this way, mommy, I really feel like, then they just stop talking to you. And then you have to maybe beat them up and start talking to your friends and say, I don't know what's going on with this child. I don't know why there's so much sexual perversion in the society. In my country recently, some students, instead of going to school, they would, I don't know if they will go or they will not go, but they were caught trying to have a sexual, is it party or orgy? I don't know. But it didn't start that day. Who knows what information they had from home, right? Because we cannot blame society and the internet for providing all kinds of information. Are we going to stop it? We should be teaching them, talking with them and encouraging them to trust us. And we should also be talking even amongst ourselves, as my big sister said and other people have said, talk about it. We have also had those kind of conversations and we are encouraging each other. When my son was going watching porn and all of those kind of things, I took it to my support group on WhatsApp. I told my big sister, and we explored opportunities to have the conversation with him. So I really think that caregivers, we should take this very seriously. We should talk. We should not be ashamed. We should not hold on to our cultural practices and all of that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, maybe Marie has just reminded me of something I forgot to add. For the young teenagers in this forum today, I just want to tell you that true love waits. Yeah, there's no hurry. There's no hurry in like even after your high school. You like there's a lot of time for you to do all these things. You don't have to do them now. And secondly, if you're already sexually active, there's still you can still redeem yourself and still abstain and become a better person about it. This is not the time. This is your time to get good grades, get admitted to university, pass university and all. And also, if you're already a young mother, there's still hope for you. Pick up from where you've left. Like, okay, it's okay, you've gotten a kid, but it's okay. Yeah, we accept you've gotten a kid. Now it's time for you to move on with your life. Go on with your life as it was planned. Yeah. And another thing I want to encourage all of us. There's this quote that says, if it has to be, it starts with me. Yeah. It starts with us as teenagers to start the conversation with our peers, our parents in a friendly way. Yeah. And make people listen. It starts with us as campus students who are young adults to speak to our younger peers. Yeah. Speak to people who look up to us. It starts with us as parents to introduce this topic in our conversations with our children and educate them about their sexual health. It starts with us as teachers and mentors to be open to listen to that child who is so scared to talk to their parents, but they can open to us. To that kid whose father is probably molesting her, but she can't tell her mom. It's up to us as mentors and teachers and other young people and even teenagers to listen to this girl and help her channel her problems to the right authorities to help her. Yeah? And for whatever it's worth, encourage everyone else to speak up. As Marie said, people are not raped because they have bad character, or they're not raped because they dressed badly. They're not raped because of their color. Nobody deserves to be raped, either male or female. So it's up to us to voice this to our community and make people speak up and make people speak up about it. So that's what I forgot to say.
Thank you, Harriet. And we are to the question and answer part of this meeting. So is there anyone in our audience who has any question to the panelists, or anything you'd like to say?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
Yes, Rehema.
Thank you. I have a question, and this goes to Harriet. At what age is it recommended for a parent to introduce a child to family planning, and how can you deal with it? Let's say, for example, you want to introduce a child who is in primary school. This child is sexually active, and the girl is grown, and you want to introduce the child to family planning methods. And how best can you approach this child, because the child does not know that there are pills or there are injections? How best can a parent do that? And my second one, this one I've been told by one of the girls from my school, like a teenager, what's the best way, and this goes to Marie, what's the best way to start a conversation between this girl? How best can this girl start a conversation with a parent on their flow or their menstruation? How best can they do it? Thank you.
Should we go right to answering questions, or should we wait for other questions?
I think it's best that you answer it.
Okay, so for my question, you have this girl, teenage girl, who, as a parent, she's sexually active. The first step is to talk to her and assess the situation. Is this girl willing to put a halt to her sexual activities at her age, or is she not? If not, my opinion would be you should maybe you should visit a gynecologist and even advise that girl on contraception. And in my opinion, the best contraception for this girl would be something that protects her from both STIs and pregnancy, which would be condoms. In my university, we had this campaign during Valentine's on 14th of February, which was captioned, "No glove, no love." Meaning, like, people should actually participate in protected sex. Yeah. And fortunately enough, in our country, for the most government institutions, including, from universities and other government institutions, they always have condom dispensers. So for us, it's easier. It's just motivate, like trying to ask people to use the condoms that the government is providing. But for a high school girl or a high school young man who is sexually active, it there's a dilemma between the culture and the religion. But my opinion would be, if I was a parent, I would encourage my child to use protection, and even maybe if it's a girl, put her under contraception. Yeah. And that also brings the issue of, this is something maybe all of you should think about. If you have a young teenager, yeah, you're not sure if she's sexually active or not, would you put her on contraceptives as a precaution? Or do you think if you put your young teenager on contraceptives, it encourages her to start being sexually active at a very early age? That's a question, that's a rhetorical question for all of you to think about.
Okay. I found that question very interesting. How do you talk to a young girl or talk with, because talking to is that you're just giving instruction. So you talk with. You have to, first of all, apologize that you didn't do it earlier. You didn't have that conversation with her earlier. If she brings it up, even if she's trembling, because sometimes they might be feeling so embarrassed. Maybe they have shamed her in school, she was stained, or she didn't have a pad with her, because sometimes the first flow comes unexpectedly. You don't even know how to count your cycle, follow it through and stuff. And so they might talk to a friend first, or they might tremble and come and try to find a solution themselves, and then just bring it up. If you have a relationship, right, if they are not scared of you, even if they're scared of you, they might just come and stand and be fiddling around you, and then just tell you, Mama, there was blood on my uniform today, or Daddy, I don't know. So you have to, like, oh my darling, I'm so sorry. I didn't talk with you about your menstruation before, but please, quickly find a solution. First of all, let them get really cleaned up, and let them also know that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's not a sin. It's not I don't know what, all of that, because sometimes, seriously, in some cultures and in some, it's like, I think even in the Bible, when the woman is unclean, whatever happens or stuff like that, I think so. People grew up, I don't know, some people thinking like, oh, don't talk about this thing here, but I do talk about all of those things. So then once she's clean, and she comes and sits down, like with my girl here, I just put the thing there, and for each time, and curiously, she and I, we have our flow at the same time. So when I see her with a pad, I know mine is coming. Or when she sees me with a pad, she knows hers is coming, and we laugh, and then we have the conversation. So there's nothing embarrassing about it. Please, you know, calm the girl down first of all. Listen to her. It's not time for you to start giving instructions and start making her feel like, hey, now that you have started, just know that that's how pregnancy will follow. No, help her to get clean and to feel safe, and then sit down and have the conversation, and then try to follow up so that she doesn't feel like, oh, you just stuck with me the other day because you wanted to get rid of me. That's how I'm going to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet and Marie, for answering that question. Is there any other question from the audience, or anyone who would like to share their challenges or experiences?
I just want to add something. It's just like a personal story. Uh, I was pregnant at the age of 17. No, 16, because I had my baby 2 weeks to my 17th birthday. I think it was just like, it went so fast, because that was, I think, 3 times after. I was really not actually sexually active, but the first time you had sex and this. So that has shaped my way of looking at life. I don't want any child I know to fall victim just like me, because my parents thought that I was young for them to have that conversation. Talking about contraceptive, I'm still trying to, because I think it's Rehema who talked about a child, a primary school, I don't know what age, but I think it's below 15, below 17 and sexually active. We as parents, I don't want to say because we are 21st century parents, we should be, like we should compromise. No, we have to talk with our kids to know that it is really not important. I think Harriet talked about telling them what is important in their lives, like having good grades, having a partner. What is it? Is it for the sex that you have in this man? The man will ruin you tomorrow. It's your college or your secondary school. What is it that you guys are looking for? Is it that pleasure? Is that pleasure worth it? We need to learn how to normalize this conversation and tell them the good about it. It's good when you are matured, you know the reason why you have a need, because I don't want to imagine that for a 14-year, 15-year-old girl or boy is sexually active. That should be out of curiosity and or some kind of, I think there's some kind of psychological there's some psychological thing. I think I don't know whether Marie can explain that, because being sexually active, I understand fully well that the hormones are there for a boy. For a girl, we know that for the woman, it's in the head. So a 15-year-old really knows nothing. It means that that's why we talked about. She was talking about the rape in church, how people perceive rape. People promote rape culture. We have to like always tell these boys not to rape. You have to seek for consent. That's why at a certain age, we have to tell them the age of consent. Use the law to explain to them that the legal age, I don't know, I think we have to take the UN age, which is 18. The legal age of consent is 18. So it's from 18 years that you can even start, like making them understand that it's not normal what they're doing. It's normal because of their body. But when you look at it, what is the rationale behind? It's just like, okay, you mommy and daddy, they're having sex every other day in the night at home. You are having it, you go out, so you marry. If you want to have legal sex, just get married and do it. You don't have to be hiding around. I see today in the 21st century more teenage mothers than in our days. I don't know what is happening, because I still ask myself questions. In the 80s, I remember my classmates, I think we were 2 or 3 of us in a whole school of about 3,000 who were pregnant. But now you go in every household, you have teenage girls or young adults, they're having 2, 3 kids in their house, and parents accept this. For me, I think it's something, I don't want to say I don't want to say something is wrong with this generation. There's something wrong. And how do we catch it? Because I remember in the 90s, I was working with this project, Adolescents Reproductive Health, HIV/AIDS. We were scared to know, like, it's not only about having, you're talking about using a condom. In the event where a condom breaks, what do? Event where so you faced with unwanted pregnancy, venereal diseases, and then unwanted pregnancy. You see, so these are some of the things we need to tell them. We need to tell them that you risk having a baby. Are you responsible enough to take care of a child? Are you responsible enough to take care of your health? These are some of the questions we have to ask them, normalizing the conversation without being very strict, but giving them that choice to decide whatever they want. We can only talk with them. We cannot talk to them, because that one is our own problem. When we start talking to them, they're like, okay, your time is gone. Let's live our own time. So these are some of the challenges of the century, but, having that conversation with them is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any addition or any more questions?
I'd like to make an addition.
Okay.
And for this one, I'm focusing mostly on men. I feel like the men who have attended this forum today, you guys should be more involved in female sexual and reproductive health. Yeah. If you're a father, or if you're going to be a father in the future, yeah, take it as a challenge that your daughter should be able to come and tell you, Dad, I'm having my period, or Dad, I'm having very painful cramps. Could you please take me to a clinic so that I can get some drugs? Yeah. Or, Dad, I have started my first period. Could you please go buy me some pads? Yeah. I'm challenging men. Let's not make this the woman's affair. Like, you're like, my wife should deal with the children, with the girls, or we need to all I'm encouraging men in this forum today to even be the men in menstruation. I want men to be ahead of everything in pushing for girls getting pads and other things, like pregnant girls going back to school after their pregnancies and all that. Because we need to accept that even in most of the societies in this world, men are more than women. Even in legislation, men are more than women. So men need, for these things to happen for the girl child, men need to push for them. Yeah. So I want to encourage the men in this group, please, we need to take a we need to up our game as men. You need to up your game as men. And lastly, this is something for you guys to think about. Have you guys ever thought about how condoms are supplied? Okay, like in my country, condoms are supplied in all government institutions, but there's nowhere that you can get pads supplied for free. There are no pad dispensers, even in public institutions. So that means if a girl is on her period, that's her problem. She has to cater for it. And that makes even some of the girls, as Marie said, the sex for pads thing, it's, it's quite unfortunate. I think we should, in our own small way, we should try to advocate for pads to be a human right, yeah, and to be a free right for all people, because girls don't choose to bleed. I mean, you can choose to be sexually active or not, you can choose to have sex or not, but you can't choose to get your period. So in your small way, I mean, I'm encouraging you guys, I implore you guys to try and see how much you can push for pads to be a right, a basic right in the in all of your societies. Because in the whole world, there's only one country which gives free pads to people. The rest of all the countries except one in the whole world tax pads and make women pay for pads. Just think about it, and maybe you can push for it in your different forums in the future.
Okay, thank you, Harriet. So I think for the sake of time, I will hand this over to Marion for the closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Grace. And just before I go to vote of thanks, I just would like to read a few comments from our Facebook Live. And we have a comment from Chris. He's saying, this conversation is important for parents in the information age. However, age-appropriate language and information is key. We as parents also need to maintain our credibility as supporters and guardians to our kids. Thank you so much for that insight, Chris. And another one from Stella Sikome. I hope I've read your name correctly, or near being correct. So Stella is saying, this is a good conversation indeed. I could request that we have the male opinion on the topic next time. Yes, actually, this is very interesting. Thank you, Stella, for this insight. In 2020 September, we had a session just for men and fathers, and we really had a very interesting discussion. And this is something that we are gonna put into consideration in the future future topics to be handled. And thank you all for this, for availing yourselves for this conversation. And just a recap on the objectives that GWES and NetPlus are trying to achieve through this talk, and sensitize our communities on menstrual hygiene and sexuality. 2 is to advocate against stigma that surrounds menstrual health. And 3 is to promote empowerment opportunities to adolescents and youth in our communities. Just on the same last objective, I'd like to tell you that today we had a different session from others, and our guest moderator is a young person. She's in grade 7, and Grace, you've done a wonderful job. The confidence that you've shown today is a top notch, and I'm very sure your parents are here. They proud of you. Say thank you to our panelists, Marie, all the way from Cameroon, and Harriet, who's a student at University of Nairobi, and our guest moderator, Shiko, as I said, and the brain behind this session, that is the organizers, Great Foundation and NetPlus, Cheryl and her team, Lydia, Dominicas and their team as well, and my team. I'm from Great Foundation, and your safety during these unfortunate times. We have a pandemic. Just make sure that you wear a mask, you sanitize, wash your hands, and keep safe. So my name is Marion Foundation, and at this particular time, I'd like to call upon Rehema to close this conversation with a word of prayer. Rehema, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you, everyone, for joining this session today. A big thank you to our moderator, Grace. You've done it, my girl, and you're going places. I'm going to pray, and let's pray. Father, we thank you for this wonderful moment. We thank you because you've guided us throughout the session. We thank you for each and every family who joined the session. Bless them in your own way, guide them, and also give the parents the idea on how to deal with the teenagers and the adolescents at this trying age. Bless each and every person, be with us all. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Hope to see you next month.